All right, you guys, how are you? All right, as promised, I said I was going to share with you guys some of my favorite tips for getting your kids on board when it comes to clean eating, because I know that whenever I started to eat clean, like honestly, I was kind of wondering, am I even going to stick with this? Like, I've started and stopped so many diets in the past. Like, am I even going to stick with this portion control, this clean eating, Shakeology? But pretty quickly, honestly, when I started, even though I didn't do it perfectly, and it took a very long time for it to become a habit, portioning out my food, meal planning, meal prepping. Oh my gosh, it took me too long to realize that that really works. And even Shakeology, I didn't notice the benefits of Shakeology right away. Sure, I love the way it tasted. Actually, the first couple ones that I mixed up, I did not like. I did not mix them well. I didn't like the flavor that I got the first time. But over time, I stuck with it. I knew that if I was going to give this a shot, I had to stick with it for longer than a week, okay? And so with Shakeology itself, I noticed within a month, hey, I'm not craving as much sweet stuff at night before I go to bed. So that was one of the first benefits. Within 2 or 3 months, I noticed that my hormones were so much better. Guys, like, if I can tell you just openly and honestly, I was a horrible person to live with for about 2 weeks out of the month before my period came. And I had been that way since I was a teenager. So I just thought it was normal. And so whenever I started to notice that my hormones, my PMS was so much milder, I could go back, I could link it back to starting Shakeology. And I know that it's that because if I had to go for a little while without it one time because my orders got messed up and I had to go for a week or more without it. And the next time my period came and it was so much worse. And so I know, and I've done research, like I know it works, but you've got to give it time. I had to give it time. Within a year of being on Shakeology, my cholesterol numbers had been cut in half. So, my point being, this is not about kids, although my kids do love Shakeology. With anything that you start, if it's something that's going to work long term, you've got to give it more than a week. You've got to give it more than a month. You've got to give yourself time to adjust and to figure out how to make it work for you. And the same thing applies to getting our kids on board with healthy eating. My kids, although we've always, I fed them healthy when I wasn't eating healthy myself. I'm sure a lot of you mamas can relate to that. So we fed them healthy foods from the time they were little. I can remember my babies being in their high chair and eating avocado and mashed bananas and things like that, and cooked squash. I fed them healthy foods when I was stuffing my face with Big Macs and cookie dough. So my kids had a good palate, but I know a lot of kids don't. I know a lot of kids, parents just feed them what our culture tells us to feed them, which is Happy Meals and yogurt melts and, puff cheese balls or whatever they're called. And so I'm not faulting any parent, but it's just kind of the norm in our society. And we feed ourselves so badly that, one, it's a shock to our system. It's a shock to our habits and our behaviors when we start to change our healthy eating. And so, guys, mamas, let me encourage you. I'm not saying don't get your kids involved now, but if you haven't gotten control of your eating and your habits yourself, and you need to work there before you start that battle of getting your kids involved, it's okay. It's okay, because this is the biggest thing, because I asked my kids this tonight before I made this video. I said, guys, I got to make a video for my challengers. I want to talk to them about how to get their kids to start eating healthy, how to get their kids to enjoy healthier foods or to get involved in cooking. I said, what makes you like healthy foods? And Henry goes, you. He was like, you make me like healthy foods. And he may have meant that I bully him into eating them, although I don't. I really don't. But he sees what Matt and I eat, and because of that, he thinks about it. It forces our kids to think about what we eat, just like your husband or your spouse or whoever who watches you eat clean every single day. It makes them think about what they're putting into their own bodies. And so your behaviors all by themselves have a huge impact and influence over your kids. So mamas, please don't doubt that. Please don't take that for granted. That is an enormous, enormous influence over our children, because I'll tell you, my kids are going to have heart problems, heart issues, cholesterol issues, because I have them. Matt's family has them. And so the earlier we set them up for success, and I'm telling you, my kids love junk food. My kids love fried chicken. Henry, he's my carbaholic. You know, they both love sugar, but they know that in moderation, it's okay. I'm not saying they wouldn't eat a whole bag of Oreos, because Milo almost did today, but they love it, but they know it's not good for them. And they know it because we don't eat that way, and we have conversations about it. We don't guilt our kids about healthy, bad food, but we explain to them what's good and what's not. So let me tell you, first and foremost, the choices that you are making are the choices that are going to have a huge impact on your own family, your kids, even your husband. If you think he's not watching, if you think he's not on board, I'm telling you, my husband didn't eat the way I did for 2 out of the 3.5 years, but he is finally understanding, and he even got into God's word too, and really started to look at it and understand the fact that our bodies are precious. And if our bodies are precious, our children's bodies are precious. So just keep that in mind, guys, as you go through this and you start to include your family in what you're doing, okay? So a couple of things I want to share with you guys. One, kids are not always going to like the foods that you like. That's okay. But the vice versa, there may be some healthy foods that you don't like that your kids might like. So just because you don't like something, you don't like a certain food, you know your husband won't eat it, that doesn't mean that you just eliminate it from your diets altogether. I want to challenge you guys over the next few weeks to really start to incorporate some different foods into your kids' diets, okay? And it starts.
I'm going to make a sauce, okay?
Okay, I'll come get you in a minute. It starts, I'm not just talking like peas and carrots. I'm talking about like introduce avocado, introduce hummus to your kids, introduce, you know, orange carrots, red carrots, purple carrots, introduce red, yellow, orange, bell peppers. My kids love those. And I grew up just eating green peppers. I mean, my mom did it. We had a lot of vegetables, but you know, like vary what you put in front of your kids and introduce new foods to them all the time, especially little kids, guys. If you've got littles, if you've got small kids, start now and they won't ever know the difference. Now, if they're older, don't be discouraged if they turn up their nose at everything that you eat. Don't be discouraged if they ask for fries and chicken strips every night. Just continue to put new foods in front of them. You continue to eat new foods and they're going to be curious. And the number 2 thing, my number 2 tip for you guys, first is your habits have a huge influence. Number 2, if you put it out in front of them and you don't say a word, and if it's like the only option on the coffee table or the counter, they're going to run through and they're going to try it. They may not want you to know it, but they're going to try it. My kids, especially when we're home in the summer or holidays, they always ask me, Mom, can I have some Oreos? Mom, can I have this? Can I have chips? And I'm like, eh. And if I cut up a bell pepper and cucumbers and put it on the counter, they eat it. They don't even think about it. They eat it. But for older kids, sometimes it takes, 6, 7, 8 times for it to be introduced to them before they'll try it, and sometimes before they'll even like it, okay? So don't be afraid to just keep trying to introduce new food to them, all right? And again, another thing I'm hugely convicted about in my own home and for American families all over the world, really, is that we don't sit down enough to eat our meals. We're always going. We're always rushing. We're always going to jujitsu or baseball or church or something like that. And that while that's not a bad thing, guys, what I find is that the more time I spend in the kitchen with my kids, the more they see me cooking or actually help me cooking, the more likely they are to eat the food that we make together. And if we sit down together at a table for an actual meal, I mean, oh my gosh, who does that anymore? But when we do that, like, it's a beautiful time for our family. And if they've helped me prepare something, they're kind of excited to sit down with Mom and Daddy and eat it. And they're more willing to try certain things. And also, when we sit down together at a meal, I can make certain that my child eats 3 bites of the broccoli casserole or something like that, although they love broccoli. But I can make sure that they eat 3 or 4 bites of something. And, we're not just rushing around and I'm like, did you eat? So sitting down and having that family time, getting your kids in the kitchen to help you, it makes such a huge difference. And so I just wanted to encourage you guys. I'm going to share share some more tips as we go along this week, and just give you some specific examples of things and recipes. But I wanted to make this video because I know it can be discouraging, but I don't want you to be discouraged. I want you to have courage and just trust that just like God can help you change your habits, He can help you change and change their habits as well. Okay, so that's my message. If you have questions or anything to add to that, like I would love to know how you guys, if you've had success in getting your kids to eat healthier, share it with us. We can all share as a team, as a group, and grow together. Okay, all right, see you guys soon. Bye.